Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 74. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Monday show. Dave, getting real tired of seeing Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, but here's his 10th. It's been in 18% of all the Super Bowls ever. That's a crazy stat, and so it'll be Bucks versus Chiefs in Super Bowl 55.
Boy, that seems that's all you know in your lifetime, right?
Pretty much.
Tom Brady in the Super Bowl there. Yeah, look, the old GOAT versus the new GOAT, right? Basically, who says that quarterback play still isn't relevant in the NFL? You know, I think you go into every year thinking, well, who are the teams that could end up being in the Super Bowl and all like that. You finally get to the final, I don't know, 4 teams or whatnot. You look at the quarterbacks, and it's usually the ones that were kind of predictable there. You have to have good quarterback play I don't think it's a coincidence that Tom Brady's been in the Super Bowl all these years, right? And obviously it's fun to look back now at how much of this was Bill Belichick, how much of it was Tom Brady. That's obviously going to be a pretty good argument, I think, going forward, especially if Tom Brady winds up winning this thing. But I don't think it's a coincidence that we're sitting here staring at Super Bowl LV with Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes here.
Nope, not at all. And you're going to see Mahomes a lot more throughout the rest of his career. And Brady, who knows? You may see him again at the rate he's going right now. So a good championship Sunday, but overall it went, Bucks and Chiefs, as you said, Dave. Quarterback play rules everything.
Yeah, and what was the thing that stuck out the most to you about the conference championship games on Sunday?
Well, I think the most head-scratching moment was the Packers' decision when they're down 31-23, fourth and goal at around the 9-yard line, and they kick a field goal instead of going for it and give the ball back to Tom Brady and let them just run out the clock. And I know hindsight is always a factor, but even at the time, everybody, myself included, is screaming, why are you not going for it? Why are you kicking the field goal? And then for Buffalo, they found out that you can't kick field goals and beat Patrick Mahomes, which is a real shocker of a statement. You got to play aggressive. You got to finish drives and finish in the red zone. And KC did that. Buffalo didn't, and so KC advances.
My brilliant analysis the other day about scoring more points to win. Hey, I kind of look like a clairvoyant right now, right? You have to score more points than the other team to win. No, in all seriousness, you're right there. The Buffalo was able to move the football quite a bit on that Chiefs defense, but you're right. You can't just I figured they would need probably 28, 29, 30 points to be able to beat the Chiefs, and obviously they didn't get anything close to that. And boy, Josh Allen that didn't look like the Josh Allen that we saw most of the season, right? Props to the Chiefs for being able to get a lot of pressure on Josh Allen in that game, and overall, if you've probably told them to look at Stephon Diggs' stat line and take it or leave it. Ahead of that game, they would have probably taken that stat line there. So they did a great job of controlling him overall. Once again, the Bills were able to move the football, but they couldn't cash in. You're right. You're not going to beat them with a bunch of field goals there. And while Patrick Mahomes, one of the big things that I kind of wondered about going into this game and why I picked Buffalo plus the points and potentially even to upset the Chiefs in this game was, I wasn't so much worried about the neck and all about Patrick Mahomes. I obviously thought he'd get cleared to play. I was wondering about that toe of his and the mobility and all. And while it did look like he was blatantly trying not to take off with the football and run with it and run on that bad wheel of his, he was still able to make plays and extend a few plays and doing, kind of Patrick Mahomes kind of things. And, the Buffalo Bills, I thought overall, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right? About sending pressure after Patrick Mahomes. They didn't do it much of anything. I don't think in the first half. I think they blitzed something like twice or something total. And then obviously in the second half, when they did try to do it, you leave a lot of, one-on-one situations and Tyreek Hill and Kelsey just running away from you there. So they were in a no-win situation there. I think defensively it came down to pretty much could Buffalo outscore the Chiefs, and that sounds like a Captain Obvious thing, but that's really what it came down to. Now with the with the Packers game, boy, if you tell me Tom Brady throws 3 interceptions in that game, you're probably thinking the Buccaneers lost that one. Well, the problem was that the Packers turned it over twice in that game, and I don't know if on that key third down late in the game, if Aaron Rodgers takes off with that football, if he scores, in that situation, it's probably close. But you follow that, you double down with him not doing that, with a decision on fourth down of taking the, that guy's got a good chance at being, one of the most valuable players this year, in the NFL. Talk about Aaron Rodgers, and just looking at his history in general there, why in the hell are you taking a football out of his hands, and especially with that score and all like that? So, yeah, Matt LaFleur taking a lot of criticism, rightfully so, in that. What did you think about the way the game was called and then the late kind of pass interference penalty?
Yeah, I think the issue that most people have isn't the fact that they called PI on that third down. It was just the fact that it felt inconsistent with the way they called the game, the rest of the game, the first 59 minutes of it. I think that was the issue that most people had.
Sure, I get that more than anybody, but I mean, you have to look at these in a vacuum.
Sure.
In my opinion, yeah, I get it. And if that had been the Steelers, we would be writing and talking about, well, okay, that was pass interference, but look at the way they called it. Now, that was a lot more blatant than any of the other ones that happened during the game. Yeah, there was some tugging, and I think overall, didn't we even get into the third quarter of that game without there being a penalty called, period?
Right.
I disagree. Look, there was holding going on throughout that game. I mean, it was pretty blatant that there should have been more calls. So, but within that, I think you have to look at it, each call in a vacuum there, and that was the most blatant one of all the calls that weren't called on defenses in that game. I mean, the guys. I mean, it looks like Laffy Taffy. The way and he pulled it twice, I think. In that play. So there's no way, in my opinion, and to say it's uncatchable. I mean, was it? If anything, the argument for that one penalty alone should be, well, it's defensive holding, all right? And if it's defensive holding, it's still a first down, right? So right. I get it and all like that, but in my opinion, the Packers lost that game. A, when Rodgers did not take off with the football and maybe try to run for the touchdown there, and B, when Matt LaFleur decided to kick the field goal.
Agreed on both points. And so it'll be Tampa Bay versus the Chiefs. Tampa Bay, the first basically home team in a Super Bowl ever. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic works. I think the Chiefs are getting there 2 days beforehand, changes in the rules. Obviously, no real Super Bowl week because of COVID. 22,000 fans expected in Tampa Bay, so will be quite a matchup. Any initial thoughts on which way you're leading, KC versus Tampa?
Man, I look at that Buccaneers defense. I keep relying on it on the two figures. Your turnover number, and then the adjusted net yards for passing attempt number, and all like that. And looking at that, and then adding in the fact that, boy, sure is going to be nice for the Buccaneers to be in their own beds every night. But on the flip side, the Chiefs are just a lot of the guys on that team. Are used to this just from last season, from going through the process here. And then you look at Tom Brady on the other side and thinking, man, hey, is he going to, what's the odds of him losing another Super Bowl here to someone not named Eli Manning, Where's Eli Manning when you really need him,
Well, the Chiefs DC is Steve Spagnuolo, who was the Giants DC.
There you go. There you go. But my initial thought coming right out of the championship games was, man, I like the Bucs plus the points here. But obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, and he's going to have some time to heal up here now, and obviously the Chiefs are going to be probably a little bit more creative on the offense, and then you look back to the game earlier in the season, right, and the way the Chiefs kind of manhandled the Buccaneers that time, right? Going to be a good game, but my initial thought is to take the Bucs plus the points. And
my initial thought, it's Chiefs. I mean, both are really great teams, but the Bucs to me are that powerful but mortal team, and the Chiefs are just that powerful, immortal team where there's no way to beat them. Anything you do, they seem to have a counter, and they always have an answer for it. They always find a way to win. They get down early in games. Last year's title game, they were down 17-7. They take the lead by halftime. This game, yesterday, they're down 9-0. They're taking the lead by halftime comfortably. They can just turn it on so quickly and just change their circumstances so dramatically in such short notice. It's just hard even to wrap your head around. So lean in the Chiefs, but we'll see what the line is and make that pick a couple weeks from now.
Is there anything we can learn from these two teams being in the Super Bowl and apply it to the Steelers?
Having a Hall of Fame quarterback is very helpful. I don't know. The speed kills, obviously that's one element of it. I don't know if there's anything directly that isn't obvious that we could take from either of these teams and apply it to the Steelers.
I mean, you got to have a halfway decent defense and a franchise quarterback. Other than that, have at it, right?
Yeah, because the Chiefs break all the rules, though. Like, you don't need a run game. I mean, they don't run the football. They don't, Le'Veon Bell didn't play, and, Edwards-Helaire, the first-round pick, didn't play well. They just break all the rules, and Tom Brady, I mean, you can just say find a quarterback that will get you to 10 Super Bowls, but, good luck finding that guy.
Look at what the Chiefs are dealing with on a lot of people, and hopefully I would think somebody's going to focus in on this moving forward. But look at their offensive line at this point.
Sure. Yeah, they're injured, they're backups, they're undrafted guys, 7th-round picks, and they're making it work because they're finding some talent, and then Mahomes is just Patrick Mahomes.
Right, and they even went into that game yesterday with kind of makeshift offensive line. Obviously you have Eric Fisher over there, but you're not going to have him now, right? Because of an Achilles. Mm-hmm. So you got Wisniewski, and I mean, it just goes to show how overrated. If you have the franchise quarterback who is able to now Tom Brady's in total different situation. He's got a well coached up, kind of a little bit more experienced offensive line there, but his pocket presence is bar none. I mean, that guy knows how to maneuver in a pocket still, and that kind of thing there. So, don't tell me that you have to have the league's best offensive line, in order to be in a Super Bowl here. And I think you hit on a few things there. Boy, you look at guys like Mecole Hardman and obviously Tyreek Hill, and then you look at the type of tight end that Travis Kelce is. And then obviously with Patrick Mahomes and his ability to extend plays, that's key. And then they have just a good enough defense there. On top of it, you look at Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, and they've got a good wide receiver core over there. They obviously have Tom Brady, a very, very, very smart quarterback, and they've got a better than average defense over there. So, but the key component there, I think, is a franchise quarterback.
For sure. That's where it all starts. So we'll see 2 weeks from now who will win the Super Bowl. Should be interesting. But to take things back to some Pittsburgh Steelers news that came out yesterday. This is from Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Not an official report. Again, nothing here is official. We cannot stress that enough. And this report was actually refuted quickly by former Steelers lineman Ramon Foster. But Dulac reporting that Maurkice Pouncey has told teammates that he is likely retiring this offseason, told them after the Browns' wild card loss. Obviously, those rumors came out right after the season ended. Now more substantive speculation about Pouncey's potential retirement, but nothing has been made official. Again, Ramon Foster tweeted back of this report saying that, trust me, no decision has been made yet.
Well, they do a good job of trying to, barring change of heart. You got to be smart when you write stuff like that. That way you look right on both sides of it, right? And Dulac's a master of that, right? So
yeah, there's a good old escape hatch in this report here.
Right, we got to get better at doing things like that ourselves, I think. I still think it could go either way. I mean, when you have Foster on the other side saying what he's saying, and you have to think that Foster and Pouncey are pretty tight still. Maybe in the heat of the moment, did Pouncey maybe say, "I don't know if I'm going to come back"? Blah blah blah. I obviously that's possible. It would add up with the amount of years he's in the league. But then you turn around on Instagram and him and his brother on the doing cardio work this morning, on Instagram. Now, would they do that regardless? Probably. I mean, you get in the habit of doing that kind of stuff. You do it. So, long story short, until Maurkice Pouncey tells us he's retiring, I'm not going to, all of it's just reports right now. Obviously, we'll pass it along to our readers and talk about it whenever there's a report like this. But once again, there was one heck of an escape hatch by Jerry Dulac there. And, boy, you just hate to think about it, too. If indeed this is the case and Maurkice Pouncey does retire, that leaves a hell of a damn gaping hole. And I think Matthew Marksey or one of you guys wrote about it this morning on the site. Gaping hole at the center position, and you would have to wonder, man. You talk about when Pouncey and Pouncey and Roethlisberger extended a couple of years ago, they kind of felt like they were tied to the hip there, right? And obviously we saw the reaction of the two on the bench after the loss to the Browns. It makes you kind of wonder. If one goes, will the other one go? Or if one comes back, will the other one come back? Kind of thing there. So the Steelers would have one hell of a gaping hole there at the center position. And once again, God bless J.C. Hassenauer, but he's not it, man. Nope. He is not it at all. And you're not going to have the money to go out there to get a quality, veteran free agent center. So you'd almost be locked into the first couple of rounds of the draft of getting one, and then trying to bring that guy along as fast as you can, especially if a guy like Ben Roethlisberger returns.
Absolutely. And yeah, so this report, I mean, Dulac's reporting, because the one part of the report that has the most teeth to it is that Pouncey reportedly told teammates he's likely retiring. So do we take that as face value? Do we assume that is true? Based on the way that Ben and Pouncey were reacting after the game, obviously seems to jive with that report, but the report is that he's likely retiring, not that he is retiring, the same way that Vance told Ben, I am retiring. And, of course, even if you say that, anyone can change their mind a couple weeks after the fact when the loss doesn't sting quite as much, when you have a couple weeks to kind of clear your head, get away from football. Your body feels a little bit better. Ben may be convincing you to come back or whatever the case is. So we know these guys can change their minds. So it's hard to really know what direction this thing is going. Certainly it's possible, but until the decision is final, then you just have to, just say it's up in the air right now. And so I think that's the approach this team has to take. But as you said, Dave, if Pouncey does retire, I still think Ben comes back, even though they've always said they were going to retire together. I think just Ben wants to come back, and he's not going to retire simply because Pouncey has retired. As big of a loss as that would be for him and for the team, but it would be a huge loss for the team. There is no in-house replacement. They would have to draft somebody, and center would vault to almost the top, if not the top of the list in terms of Steelers needs.
Why do all these reports too hit Sunday? Max viewership on Twitter. Obviously Dulac's not on TV, but man, it wasn't long. I don't think into the first game when he hit the. You know what I'm getting at there is kind of magically that kind of magic that all these reports hit on Sunday around game time. And the way it was worded too. Look, I mean, is it absolutely plausible that Maurkice Pouncey retires this offseason? Yes, absolutely it is. I don't think it's a slam dunk yet either. And if we don't pass along reports carefully like Dulac passed along, then we're not doing our job, right? So, and we spend 10 minutes talking about it here, on a podcast on top of it. So I guess I'll just leave it at this. We'll see. The reports out there, and obviously it's plausible that he could retire. I still would not be shocked if we get 4 weeks from now, and he is decided he is coming back. But here's the thing: we're going to find out by March 17th. So we're not going to be twisting in the wind too terribly long. So we're less than 60 days away, and I would like to think that we would probably know by March 1st, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't think it'll take until March to make a decision. Hopefully in the next, I think maybe 2-3 weeks, you make a decision for yourself, for the team, and just so everyone kind of knows where everybody stands. I don't know if that's
that goes for Roethlisberger too.
Yeah, just all parties involved. I think it's just good for the team so they know if Pouncey's coming back or not, so they can begin to plan and for his future or not. So yeah, I think the best way I can phrase it right now with Pouncey, he could go either way. He could retire. He could come back. I don't think any decision has been made yet, and that reporting seemed to very much reflect that.
Right. Look, we'll see. And obviously today is January 25th, and the start of the new league year is March 17th. We don't even know the salary cap number yet. Probably not going to know it for a little while longer here. So if we put this thing a month from now, we're talking about the end of February. And how many days are in February this year? There are 28?
Still 28
this year in February. So I mean, we're right at a month away of having all of our answers. I would like to think on what the cap will be, whether or not Ben Roethlisberger's coming back, whether or not Maurkice Pouncey's coming back. Those kind of things there. So I don't think we're going to be left twisting in the wind too terribly long, but. We'll see if Dulac winds up being correct here.
Just a quick question. Do you think if Ben comes back, do you think he puts out a statement saying I'm coming back, or does he just come back and not have to put something out because the assumption was that he was going to return and he never heavily hinted at retirement? How do you think Ben approaches that?
I mean, obviously, I don't know specifically when it comes to him.
I'm just curious.
But I would think he has said all along that I'm going to honor my plan is to honor the contract. So for him, I don't think there's a need for him to say dun da 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 I'm coming back. Unless it's just been wanting to steal the headlines for the day. I would think that the way that we would kind of find out about it, or at least I would speculate that the way that we're going to probably find out about it is officially is something happened maybe with some sort of restructure like we've talked about on his contract that surfaces first or something. But once again, we're not going to be left twisting in the wind too terribly long because Ben's got that roster bonus that's due right after the start of the new league year, and if they want to do anything cap-wise to alleviate that number, that's going to have to get done probably by the end of February. Obviously, there's always news about Ben right around his birthday too, which is the 1st of March, right around in there. So, will he have to come out and say it's officially official? I don't know. It could go either way with him. You know how it is.
Yeah, right. I think there's a chance he just doesn't say anything, and that's how we just find out that he's not retiring. Is the fact he just says nothing, but. We'll see. So I just say that to say that don't necessarily wait on pins and needles for Ben to make an announcement, because it may just be that he doesn't announce anything and that just assumes come March that he's going to return.
And he'll and his first press conference back, he'll say, "Well, I told you guys I plan on honoring my contract."
Exactly.
And that's the way he'll go forward with it. But who knows? Who knows? But I mean, you're still leaning toward him coming back, right? I know I am.
Heavily, yes. Heavily returning or leaning towards Ben returning.
And which way are you leaning with Pouncey right now, if you had to make a bet right now?
I know the report obviously indicated he was retiring. My gut, though, for whatever that's worth, it's probably not worth much, says that he comes back either because Pouncey has a change of heart or that Ben convinces him to take one more ride. And then they can both go out in 2021 if that's the decision they want to go.
That's exactly the way I'm leaning as well, too. Yeah. Now, I guess the question is, is it the right decision on the parts of both of them? Versus the cap money saved, and I'm like, look, this There's no way the 2021 Steelers are winning a Super Bowl without Ben Roethlisberger, you wouldn't think, right?
Right.
Not that they have a astronomically better chance with him, but barring them going out and getting some sort of a franchise quarterback, which kind of defeats the purpose, cap wise. I would.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes, so get ready.
But my thoughts still are Ben's coming back, and that Pouncey's going to be back as well too. So we'll see.
If Pouncey retires, what are the cap implications on that? We can kind of segue into, you wanted to do a quick cap update on the state of the team. What is the cap savings if Pouncey does retire?
Yeah, he's due $8 million the final year of his current contract in 2021. They would save the $8 million minus displacement cost, which I think is what a minimum salary is like $660,000 or something like that for a player right there. So you would save a little less than $7.5 million in actual true cap space saved if he were to retire. I wouldn't think that the Steelers would go after the prorated portion of his signing bonus, right? Yeah. It would be a parting gift to him, if you will. So it would be $8 million. You save in cap space minus displacement cost. So you're looking at just under $7.5 million true cap space savings in a rule of 51 there. And in the grand scheme of things, I mean, that $7.5 million could be a lot if you're dealing with a cap number obviously closer to $198.2 million. It could be very beneficial to you. However, if you're dealing with a number around 175 or 180 million, it's just a flesh wound, It barely makes a mark in there. So, but until he comes right on out and says, I mean, you can look at when you look ahead at the salary cap situation with this team, especially not knowing what the cap number is, and then obviously having guys like Ben Roethlisberger and Maurkice Pouncey with decisions that are kind of still up in the air. It's kind of hard to take a good snapshot at this and then project off of it, and that's the battle that a lot of us are going to have, me specifically, because I'm such in tune with the team's salary cap savings. Now I can tell you this right now. The team, and I don't think, even though it hasn't officially hit or the paperwork I don't think's been filed yet, I think we both agree that Vance McDonald's not coming back now, right? He's not going to have a change of heart, and he's not going to come back. Would you agree with that?
100%.
All right. So if that's the case, we can go ahead and kind of work on our rule of 51, if you will. And once again, you're going to hear rule of 51 a lot. So if you're new to the podcast during the off season, prior to the new league year starting in March, you work off of a rule of 51. All right. And you work on that rule of 51 throughout the off season until the final cut down, the final official first day of the season, when teams have to be under the cap with their entire roster. But you're going to hear rule of 51, and you're going to work off the rule of 51 all off season long here. So and especially come the start of the new league year, and that's your top 51 cap hits. And then obviously you factor in your dead money, and then any outstanding bonus prorated money that falls outside of the top 51 gets factored in as well too. So the further you get along with this thing, your roster is obviously going to grow and get closer to the 90-man limit there. Well, the top 51 cap hits count on that towards your salary cap, and then obviously any bonus prorated money outside of that, dead money, any carryover money, all those kind of things. So you're going to hear rule of 51 talked about a lot, and that's what we're talking about initially here. So, and another thing is you're going to start hearing people say, well, what about the draft class cost and practice squad. And look, the main goal of this team right now is to get cap compliant by March 17th. Obviously, that's well before the draft. That's well before they have to worry about practice squad or having room for in-season cap work. So the whole speculation process and mapping out the Steelers' course to getting cap compliant is just that, them getting cap compliant by March 17th, because a lot of things will still have to take place after that, but the starting point once again is getting yourself cap compliant here. So the rule of 51 number right now, and also we learned over the weekend, and this has been known for a while, if you just follow the NFL league-wide salary cap report, which you can find on the NFLPA site that updates, daily, that kind of thing, is that the Steelers are scheduled to roll over almost $5 million in unused cap space from 2020. 4,950,554 is the exact number. So when you factor that in, along with their current rule of, their current top 51 salaries right now add up to be almost $207 million. They have, when you throw in the Vance McDonald dead money onto the list, they've got almost $3.1 million in dead money. You're looking at a working number of a little over $210 million. Then you can take the nearly $5 million that they have in rollover and subtract it from that. So you're talking about a real close to being right rule of 51 number at being at $205 million. Okay. So the question becomes in, all right, we have a $205 million working, rule of 51, if you will. What is the cap number? Well, that's a great question. Obviously, if it's $198.2 million, the Steelers are in great shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
you just restructure Hayward into it, and you're there, right?
Oh man, you're well under then. I mean, you really got some money to even play with at that point there. As far as early off-season work goes. Now, once again, you got practice squad later on, sure, and things after the fact to work with. So if you're dealing with, okay, let's say it's a. There was a report this past week of $180 million, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's assume that, yeah.
We'll kind of work off of that number then. And if you look at the 205 and you subtract, $180 million, you're looking at $25 million over the number there. Obviously, that's a lot different there. But even so, what did we say that we could get from a from a max restructure on Hayward and Tuitt, which are going to happen regardless? I mean, that's nearly $11 million. So we've already trimmed that number down to right around $14 million over, right? Which isn't it isn't awful, right? I mean, it's still bad because you got the two main restructures out of the way, but we don't know what's going to happen with Ben in that contract. Obviously, there's some money to be saved there. We don't know what's going to happen with Maurkice Pouncey. We already talked about there's a net savings of really around $7.5 million there. So we've already trimmed that number potentially down even further, depending on what happens with Pouncey there. Who's going to get cut? Obviously Vance McDonald's out of the picture now, so that's one less thing to have to kind of speculate about. Is Joe Hayden going to get cut, Alex? Push comes to shove. Is Joe Hayden going to get cut?
I don't believe so. Not going to guarantee anything, but I don't believe so.
I don't believe so either. We've already talked about Derek Watt. I mean, if you cut him, what do you save? $1 million? I mean, is that even worth getting worked up over? Talking every other podcast, is Derek Watt going to get cut? No, because you say, I mean, $1 million is $1 million, obviously, but it's not huge in the grand scheme of things. So then it becomes, you're not going to cut Hayden. The next guy I guess really worth talking about is a guy like Vince Williams there, right? Yep. And we both agree that could probably go either way.
It could, and the lower that cap number comes in at, the likelier Vince gets cut.
Right, exactly. And once again, you save $4 million though pre-roster displacement. So $4 million and then subtract out 660,000. Is it worth keeping the player, or is it worth the cap money? You know, and once again, you can't look at these guys' overall cap number. You have to look at what you're paying them versus what they're worth. All right, and even post displacement, 3.4 or 3.36 or whatever the number is it worth getting that cap number, getting that cap savings to not have the player?
Yeah, well, the question is just if you don't cut the player, then how else do you get cap compliant? And is that path easier to deal with than cutting the player or not? And that's where the decision has to come in at.
Right. And once again, do you the only other ways that you have to kind of massage this thing, if you will, we already have the Hayward and the Tuitt extensions out of the way. All right, those are going to get done. I'll bet my bottom dollar that they're done by March 17th, both of them. Pouncey is the big question mark. Here's something that you could do that we really haven't spent a lot of time on, though. Could you take guys like Hayden and Pouncey and do those voidable years on them? And clear a little bit of money. Let's say both those guys still want to play and you don't want to cut them. There is some cap savings to be had there. Both of them are willing to say that 2021 is going to be, if it's an understanding on both sides, that's going to be it, right? So that it can be massaged that way. And then you look at a guy like David DeCastro. What's going to happen with DeCastro? If DeCastro comes to you and tells you he wants to play, not 3 or 4 years, then you have to extend him, and you extend him at fair market value. You got a little bit of cap savings, let's say $3.5 million to save there via an extension there. Steven Nelson's another one, which I kind of wonder about what you're going to do with him. But Nelson's kind of in that DeCastro range as well too. So and then what are you going to do with Eric Ebron? Do you entertain the thought of extending Ebron maybe to get his cap number down $1.5 million or $2 million? I would think not, but it's plausible.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be a voidable year that'd be a true extension, right?
That would be in that true extension along the lines of a David DeCastro or Steven Nelson type situation there. And then T.J. Watt. Do you bite the bullet to T.J. Watt's already on the books for $10 million. All right, and all of our figures are related to that, being $10 million. And here's one other thing I haven't factored into this too. We got to increase Chukwuma Okorafor's salary.
By the escalator,
right? Because of the escalator there. So
how much is that increase?
It's going to take him up to like 2.4 or something, right? So his cap number now is hold on a minute.
So $1.5 million more.
Yeah. I mean, so you definitely got to play with that there. So
okay. But Watt, with TJ Watt, that's probably not happening until the summer, though. Still, so that's a August, July thing.
Right, exactly. Hold on a minute. I'm trying to find you the exact number on Chukwuma Okorafor here. Because he hit the proven performance escalator here, he would go up to $2.24 million. So an increase of $1.32 million that we have to add to our numbers there. I forgot to work that into my working number there. So that needs to be accounted for on top of it.
Okay, so let's just run out a quick scenario here, because you just got to look at this thing big picture to figure out the cap situation. Let's assume the cap number comes in at $180 million. Those are the reports. It probably comes in a little bit different, but that's the general feel right now. Let's assume that you restructure Hayward and Tuitt. As you said, those are basically guarantees. And let's just assume for the moment that Maurkice Pouncey retires. Where does that leave this Pittsburgh Steelers team cap-wise, working with a salary cap of roughly $180 million? All
right.
In terms of how far they're over the cap.
Give me the scenario again.
All right. Cap number of $180 million. You restructure Hayward and Tuitt, and Pouncey retires.
All right. So you save, let's say, 18. Let's call it 18 to factor in a core 4 thing, 7 and 4 is 11, and then let's say another 6, so you save 17 million there, and I had us at a number of 205, and then subtract let's say 17 million from that. We're looking at 188, right at around 188 million number there. So okay. You're roughly 8 million over 180 million cap number there, and you haven't cut any other players. All you have done at that point is restructure Tuitt, Hayward, and Pouncey retired.
Okay, and theoretically, if you did something with Ben, do you think you get the rest of the way there if you did something with his contract?
Depends on how, that's one of the great unknowns, right? Oh, sure. We know the maximum that they can get if him not returning is you save the $19 million minus the displacement cost. The voidable year stuff, if you did a true maximum voidable year, add 4 years on and no new money and turn the max amount that you can into a signing bonus and whatnot there. The max savings there is like 14 point something million, right? So
okay, which would get you there in this rough math we're doing right now.
Right, and obviously there are other ways to restructure. I mean, not restructure, but extend and lower his cap number. But the two maximum ways is him not play, which saves you 19 minus displacement charge, or doing a complete voidable. Add 4 years on voidable extension with no new money, and you save the 14 point something. Anything else other than that is not going to save that kind of cap space there.
Right. All right. So we'll see, but that gives you just one scenario where this team could be sitting at over, just about $8-9 million over the cap after those moves happening. Granted, but maybe not quite as dire as things had potentially looked. But that also assumes Pouncey retires.
And here's the thing too: you have to think. I mean, in your heart of hearts, you have to think that the Steelers have got a pretty good idea at what the cap number will be right now, right? I mean, can you expect?
I don't know.
Can you expect teams? Less than 2 months out to, not give them a general idea where the cap number is going to be?
I don't know if they do or not. I mean, I think they have a guess, but I think, like I said on the previous podcast, you just create plans. Here's our plan if the cap stays flat at 175. Here's a middle plan if it comes in 180, 185. Here's our plan. Here's our plan if it's flat at 198. It's just math, so you just have to do that math roughly. It's what these guys are paid to do, and then you follow the plan whenever you know the final numbers. Right? I think that's just a more likely approach teams are taking right now, is just having an ABC plans for best case, middle case, worst case scenario.
Well, look what and I hate to sidetrack us here. Look what the Ravens just did almost immediately after the season was over with. They did the polite thing. Now, is that because of cap space, or is that because, look, these guys are not going to be in the picture for us in 2021? I'm talking about Robert Griffin III. I'm talking about Mark Ingram, and I think didn't they cut a couple other kind of a little bit more notable guys there. But I mean, those guys right away, they waived them right away. Now, why did they do that? Because they want to give those guys every opportunity to beat the market, to sign on with another team there, and B, they're not going to be in the plans for the team. The team already knows that we don't need Robert Griffin III and we don't need Mark Ingram on this roster at those numbers in 2021. Now, if they can already get to a position where they know that and make those kind of cuts, wouldn't you think when the Steelers dealing with a guy like Joe Hayden, Vince Williams,
but I don't think those were as obvious cuts. Mark Ingram and RG3 seemed like obvious cuts that the Ravens. Everyone knew they were going to do. I think
Mark Ingram went healthy. I mean, I get where you're going.
Dobbins and. Okay. The writing was on the wall. Ingram was inactive for the playoff game, wasn't he?
Right.
The second playoff game. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know if that's a 1-to-1 comparison. And
back to my argument is I would just think that, man, these teams have some some
maybe some
earthly idea, And with that, you would think you'd be able to start working toward that earlier. Even though the Steelers are notorious, they wait to the last possible minute to cut, but we have seen in the past them let guys go a little bit early, veteran guys. Go back several years ago with the William Gays and who was it, Will Allen, Antoine Randall Els and those kind of things there. I guess what I'm getting at is I look at where their Rule of 51 number is now, and I look at how far away that is from a number like 180 million. The ball's got to get put in motion sooner rather than later. And yeah, they probably are. Vance McDonald probably, he didn't have to be a capologist to get a good idea of what's out there, that he probably wasn't going to be able to last regardless, right? So I guess this goes back to me and being the optimist, Alex, of thinking, man, for the cap number to come in as low as 175 or 180 million dollars, I know that's what everybody's kind of, and I know that's why people have got to base their numbers on what the potential floor is. But man, my heart of hearts just tells me that the number's not going to come in that low.
I hope you're right. I'm sure Omar Khan and company hope you're right too, because the higher that number is, the better it is for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the better it is for the rest of the 31 NFL teams.
I mean, even if this thing got to 190 million, I mean, that's $10 million is monumental.
We just gave you 180. 188 was the number we just gave you, which is the difference between being cap compliant and not in that cap scenario.
Right, and you can figure out the rest of the stuff after the fact, because you're going to have injuries. You're going to have guys like there are ways to massage it obviously down further after the fact. We haven't even gotten to the point of a Watt extension and how much maybe that will potentially save later on in the offseason. There's always, and then, maybe a surprise cut here or two the closer you get to things. Now, obviously, because there's not that many restructure candidates that the Steelers have, a lot of that stuff's got to be done early there. And then overall, when you look at guys like, what are you going to do with the Pounceys and the Roethlisberger contract and the Joe Hayden contract? A lot of that stuff you're probably going to have to get. Well, Roethlisberger, obviously, because he's doing roster bonus at the start of the new league year. But guys like Hayden and Pouncey, you're probably going to do that stuff earlier rather than later there. So we're going to get a very good landscape of the situation with the Steelers cap-wise, once again, like I said, within the next 30 days by the time February 25th rolls around here, as far as that goes there. But my heart of hearts still tells me that the cap number won't come in as low as $180 million. We'll see.
We shall see. So good recap and update there on the Steelers salary cap situation. Of course, something we'll be revisiting a whole lot throughout these next couple of weeks. Dave, let's do some other Steelers housekeeping here. Just some minor coaching news to pass along to you guys. Hank Fraley, who interviewed to be the Steelers offensive line coach, is returning to Detroit. So Steelers will not be making Hank Fraley their next O-line coach. Unclear if Pittsburgh ever offered him a job or not. And Ike Hilliard, speaking of the Lions, Hilliard, the Steelers receivers coach, interviewed to be the Lions OC. That position is being filled by former Chargers head coach Anthony Lynn. So Ike Hilliard seems destined to return to Pittsburgh in 2021.
Absolutely. Now the only question is will they indeed? There's still the reports out there that Matt Canada is the leader in the clubhouse, and that report's going on 2 weekends old now, I think. We'll see. Hugh Jackson's not going to be the guy, right?
I mean, I'm not going to assume anything, but I wouldn't think so. I think you'll hear a decision made here pretty quickly because Pep Hamilton is reportedly going to interview. Is it today? What was there a date?
They just said it's still forthcoming because there was the original report that it was going to happen like on Friday or whatnot, I think. And then I think now the report is that sometime this week. And look, the Senior Bowl's firing up. You think all those guys are down there? Maybe that's when the bulk of this is going to happen down there. You know.
Yeah, and so they're not going to make a decision until they interview all their candidates. And so until Hamilton is interviewed, then they're not going to make a final decision. So let's assume that happens today or tomorrow. Today would probably be a good day because Senior Bowl, they're just getting there. There's no really activities right now. So it'd be a good day to have some sort of interview with Hamilton. And so you would assume by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, somewhere in there, a decision is going to be made.
At least by this next coming weekend, we should know at least one or two of these vacancies being filled, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with O-line coach, I don't know what they're going to do.
Right, who's the leader in the clubhouse now?
Nobody. I mean, it was Fraley's the only name that's been reportedly interviewed. I don't know if there was some interview that hasn't been reported or just is scheduled to happen and has not occurred yet or what. But we have no idea on O-line coach, and I think we'll hear about OC once Hamilton gets interviewed and they've vetted all their candidates and make a decision from there. Canada still seems to be the front runner, but we'll see how the Hamilton interview goes.
Who's on your short list of wants of offensive line coach now?
I didn't investigate that as thoroughly as I did OC. I mean, the names that I suggested, the names we both have suggested are now gone. Doug Marone's in Alabama. Chris Forrester's now with the 49ers as their full-time O-line coach, and Fraley's obviously out of the running. So I have no idea where they're going to go.
Yeah, the barrel got, and you wouldn't think that the candidate list is 12 deep either, right?
Yeah, we just have not heard much movement on that, so I couldn't really offer a whole lot of into when or who the next O-line coach will be, other than I think it will be someone from that Fraley mold of a successful player, a coach, someone that has experience. That's probably the type of guy they're looking towards.
I would think so as well too. I would think because the youthfulness, especially if you stick with a guy like Canada as your OC, man, you got to have some experience on that side of the ball, right?
Right, and I just think they saw the value of that with Mike Munchak. I mean, obviously, you're not going to find someone with Munchak's Hall of Fame resume, but there was value and credibility in that room of a guy that I played in the league for a long time. I know what it's like. I know what it takes, and that's certainly not that it's a say-all end-all because there's a lot of good players that can't be good coaches, but it helps in that room when you have the experience of being a longtime coach and a former player.
All right, so that's something we're looking to potentially happen the rest of this week.
Yep, and we'll certainly keep you posted whenever that news drops, hopefully sooner than later. Dave, let's before we get into draft stuff, because I have a lot of draft stuff I want to talk about today, speaking of quarterbacks, and we spent a lot of time talking about Ben and his future, Matthew Stafford's future seems to be up in the air with Detroit. The Lions reportedly will trade him this summer at Stafford's request, kind of a rebuilding process for the Lions with that new head coaching staff. And obviously, anytime there is a quarterback potentially on the move, Pittsburgh always gets thrown into the mix. And so what is your reaction on Matthew Stafford coming to Pittsburgh?
Well, people get mad at me when I never indulge in any of the plausibility factors when it comes to that kind of stuff, right? Cranky old Dave shaking his fist at the cloud and all. So I indulge some people in how plausible would it be from a contractual and trade standpoint for the Steelers to bring Matthew Stafford to Pittsburgh. For starters, once again, just like we kind of talked about with the crazy Deshaun Watson stuff, it first and foremost it starts with Roethlisberger being out the door soon, whether it be on his own accord or the Steelers saying thanks for everything. Here's the watch. Kind of situation there. It starts there, plain and simple, because such a move frees up $19 million in 2021 salary cap space. So such a move toward Matthew Stafford would have to start almost immediately here. Second, Adam Schefter claims that it will take at least a first-round pick to get Stafford away from the Lions. That makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm. That's reasonable.
All right, and probably take a first and maybe something else. I don't know, but at least a first. So let's entertain everybody with the thought that all it would take is a first round draft pick. Would the Steelers be willing to do that? Okay, I guess you could say it's plausible, right?
I mean, I suppose that's not an unreasonable ask for Stafford himself. There's a lot of questions about, well, how do you build the rest of your roster? If you lose Ben, you get Stafford, and you don't have a first-round pick, but we'll set that aside, I guess, for the moment.
All right, so set aside the fact that Ben's already gone. Thanks for playing, Ben. We appreciate it. We want to go about 5 years younger here with Matthew Stafford here. Then you have to look at the salary aspect here. And yes, technically they could make it work with what Stafford is due. Look, if you can't leave his number as is, he's set to earn. Matthew Stafford is $20 million in earnings in 2021. You're not going to dump $19 million off your cap in parting ways with Ben Roethlisberger to turn around to acquire a $20 million cap charge in Matthew Stafford. So something has to be done there. So immediately after you acquire him, Matthew Stafford, you would have to take $10 million that's due to him at March 17th as a roster bonus, along with most of his base salary that he's due, and then turn that into a roster bonus or a signing bonus. I'm sorry. That way, you have to take that and the byproduct of a restructure, which he would have to sign off on, would be a decrease of let's see, it would drop his cap number from $20 million to $7.38 million, a decrease of $12.6 million. Right, so that's what you're looking at saving there. So when you throw that in to the essential running off of Ben Roethlisberger and trading a first round draft pick for Stafford, assuming you could get the restructure done and all like that, would clear $11.6 million in cap space at the starting quarterback position. All right, so you freed up $11.6 million. You traded in an older model of a Roethlisberger for a slightly a used Stafford, if you will. And you only have him under contract for 2021 and 2022 because even though Stafford is under contract for 2023, that's a voidable year. So you have to count on that not working there. So you're
probably extending him after 2021, right?
If not before then, but I mean it's hard to do it. It's hard to do it now because of the fact that you're trying to save as much cap money as you wanted to,
right.
and by extending him, you're having to give him new money, yada yada. So you would have to look at it at either that, or you're saying, look, we'll let him play out these final, 2021, 2022, and then if we need be, we can put the franchise tag on him, that way. So. Essentially, you're just looking at him realistically as a 2-year rental, or if you want to look at it that way. So you're basically trading in Roethlisberger for a 5-year cheaper, Stafford for the next 2 years, and you save 11 something million along the way. And it cost you a first round draft pick on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously where this discussion starts with, you're not trading for Stafford, you're not even entertaining the idea unless Ben is gone in some form or fashion. Either he retires, which I don't expect to happen right now, or you cut him, which are you really going to cut Ben Roethlisberger? So, I mean, that's where the conversation starts and ends. Unless Ben is no longer on this roster for whatever reason, Stafford is not even a reasonable, logical thought. And I just don't see Ben not being this quarterback.
Can you imagine the headlines of the Steelers cut Ben to trade for Stafford? I mean,
chaos.
I mean, you can't imagine that, right? Now, if Ben retires, that's one thing. If Ben comes out the next couple of weeks and says, "Look, that's it, I've had it," then and only then does it become plausible. If the team thinks they have the rest of the roster and need a franchise quarterback to potentially compete in 2021, then and only then does it all make sense. Other than that, once again, you can make the numbers work, right? That way, but you're not going to cut Ben Roethlisberger to turn around and do a deal like this. The only way the plausibility factor of Stafford to Pittsburgh works is if Ben comes to you within the next couple of weeks and says, "That's it, I'm out," and then maybe you explore it, maybe. But once again, you have to probably give up a first round draft pick to it. There's a lot of things that need to happen after the fact before March 17th for such a thing to happen. So there we go. We spent 8 minutes on that because people say we never spend 8 minutes on that.
Well, let me just spend another minute more. Let's just assume that Ben retires. Let's play out that scenario. Assume Ben retires and that you want to make a play for Stafford. You could argue your roster is better. If you want to argue that Stafford is better than Ben, I mean, that's fine. I think they're kind of in that similar tier, whatever tier you want to put them in, tier 3, tier 4 type quarterbacks. But are you really a Super Bowl contending team at that point? Wouldn't you rather just start going into kind of full rebuild type mode and finding that franchise quarterback instead in the draft, as opposed to getting an older guy in Stafford, having to pay him a lot now and later if you want to extend him or tag him, whatever the case is? I mean, do you really feel like you're a Super Bowl contender if you acquire Matthew Stafford and you don't have a first round pick to fill all the free agents you're still about to lose?
Here's the thing: if everything can work out exactly how I laid it out in this post, and you get the cap savings, and let's throw in another hypothetical in there. Good Lord, I'm turning over in my own grave here, dealing with all these hypotheticals. But let's say the cap number comes in 190 million or higher. Okay, so in other words, you're able to maybe save one or two of these free agents, say a Juju and a Cameron Sutton. Okay, and you're able to still fill, and let's say you're able to save a Tyson Alu for one off season here, or for one more season here. I think it would be okay to try to make another 2-year run with a guy like Stafford, if that makes sense. But all those variables have got to be just perfect there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because look, you don't know. We're the Steelers pick. You don't know for sure what you're going to be able to get in a draft at quarterback position, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, not even necessarily for this year. It could be for next. Well, I guess. Yeah, Ben would retire.
If Ben would retire, there's no way you're competing for a Super Bowl in 2021, right?
Yeah, if you don't get Stafford, right? Yeah, you're in rebuild mode if you're not getting a veteran quarterback like a Matthew Stafford.
And at best, you've got 1 or 2 more seasons to kind of keep some alliteration of this defense together that you need to have together, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess it's probably shocking a lot of people. If Ben came to me tomorrow, if I'm Kevin Colbert, and Ben came to me tomorrow and said I'm retiring, I would seriously entertain the thought of maybe trading for Stafford. How's that?
Yeah, I mean that's indulging it. So don't tell us that we don't indulge the idea. But
would you?
I mean, I'm open to it. I'm not going to completely shut the door on it. But again, just do you feel like this team? Because we already knew, even with Ben coming back, like your roster is going to be worse next season. Your chances of winning a Super Bowl really diminish in a world where Patrick Mahomes is still existing. And so do you feel like it's really improved your Super Bowl odds a whole lot going from Ben to Stafford? I mean, maybe slightly improved, but is it worth it for that slight improvement to give up all that and not just try to find the next Ben, the next franchise guy long term? I don't know if it is.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously could, but if we are to believe Kevin Colbert, he says every year their goal is to win the Super Bowl. And if Ben tells you right now he's gone, that's the only, because of what you could probably do and what you could keep in free agency and be able to keep that defense somewhat together, and then turn around, just put a little bit younger franchise quarterback in the seat in place of Roethlisberger. I really think you'd have to examine it at that point. But once again, I'm not running off Ben to do it.
Sure.
But I think it would be plausible to at least argue that they suggest doing so if Ben were to come to them to retire. And I can't believe that's coming out of my mouth, but I think you would have to entertain the idea of trading for Stafford if Ben came to you tomorrow and said, that's it, I'm out.
Yeah, I think you entertain it, but there's just got to be a point where this team says, listen, we got to just draft a quarterback. We just got to start this process over again. And you can try to extend this thing out and do it in 2 more years after Stafford and get the next veteran quarterback. But there's got to be a point where you just sit there and say, we got to hit that reset button.
Right. And if that's the way that you want to go, then damn it, trade up and get the guy that you want to get. Don't just sit there and take the 5th best quarterback that's left on the board if there is one left on the board at 24th overall. You don't just, to me, you better be in love with the guy that you draft, period.
Sure. Of course. And just to be clear, just because you draft a rookie quarterback doesn't mean that you have to suck for that year. I mean, Ben went to the AFC title game his rookie year. He won a Super Bowl his second year. You see the success of young and rookie quarterbacks in today's NFL. Hitting that reset button in the sense of let's go find a franchise quarterback in the draft does not have to guarantee that you go 5-11 in your first year. There's a lot of evidence that actually supports the counter to that, including Ben.
Yeah, but on the flip side, Steeler fans are spoiled. You just don't go out to the garden and pluck a franchise quarterback off the tree.
Sure.
Right.
No, I said that. Once Ben retires, you're in the 80s again, and you're waiting a long time to find the next franchise quarterback.
And even some of these guys around the league, there's a lot of good quarterbacks around the league right now, but how many of them are ever going to compete for a Super Bowl? How many of these young quarterbacks, the Baker Mayfields, go down the list of
Allen.
Josh Allen. How many are ever even going to get to a Super Bowl? At this point,
Sure. Yeah, but at some point you have to sit there and say we got to find the quarterback through the draft because that's how you found the other ones. That's usually how this process starts.
Right, and you might have to go the next 18 years before you find.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'm glad I'm on the back end of my Steelers blogging career.
Right. Yeah, it's not going to be fun. But all of this, even the entertaining the idea of trading for Stafford, which I don't think is a crazy thought if Ben retires, assumes that Ben retires, which seems very unlikely right now. And maybe he goes out with Pouncey, but I all the indications are that Ben is returning. And as long as Ben says I'm playing, you're not. Stafford is just a pipe dream.
Right. And let me back it up and make sure I quantify this one last time. I am not the only way I even indulge the talk about it is if Ben says that's it, I'm out. I'm not running off Ben to do that, but if Ben were to come to me within the next 2 weeks and say, look, I thought and prayed about it, Kevin Colbert, I'm out. That's it. Then if I'm them, I do pick up the phone to see if I can get Stafford for a first round pick, and B, if Stafford would be open to a max restructure, right out of the chute, so that I can reinvest some of that money the next couple of weeks back into my own defense and maybe retain a guy like, let's say, Juju or something along those lines, because that would give me the best possibility to compete for a Super Bowl in 2021 and 2022. That's the only way I entertain it. End of story.
Yeah, I understand. But let the record show the Steelers Depot headline will reflect Dave Bryan, known Ben Roethlisberger hater, wants to cut Ben, trade for Stafford, and blow it all up. That's what the headline will read.
Right, exactly.
But again, until Ben says I'm hanging things up, then we're not going to revisit the Matthew Stafford conversation anymore in this podcast.
But they always get on us, Alex, because we said, it's no. The moment the tweets come in, somebody's getting cut or whatnot. So I indulge them. So I can't be accused of not indulging people on a certain plausibility factor when it comes to that.
Right. There you go. All right, Dave, let's transition to the right there. Let's transition to the NFL draft. Where do you want to go? I did my first mock draft of draft season that went up Monday morning on Steelers Depot. Also wanted to talk about one guy who was not in my mock draft, running back Najee Harris from Alabama. Did the player profile on him on Sunday over on Steelers Depot. Do you want to talk about Harris first? Talk about my mock draft.
Yeah. Talk about Harris and what he is and what he isn't.
I mean, I knew he was a good prospect, obviously one of the top backs in this class, but just watching his tape and really digging into it more, Dave, I came away extremely impressed with Najee Harris. And you and I both have basically been in the same camp of don't draft a running back in the first round. And I'm not saying that you need to draft Najee Harris in the first round. It's not – you see my mock draft. He's not the guy at 24. But he's a really good prospect. He fits his system extremely well in terms of being a complete back or receiving back, things like that. And Dave, he reminds me so much of Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he doesn't quite have that insane patience that Bell has, but in almost every other respect in terms of frame, overall run style, receiving ability, even the hurdles are both insanely successful hurdles for how big they are. It reminds me so much of Le'Veon Bell. And I think just for putting the positional value aside for a moment, the number one goal in the draft is you just want talent, guys who succeed. And Harris, I think, is a really talented player.
I think he is too, and obviously I haven't probably gone as deep as you have gone, but without, and I know you haven't looked deep down into the running back class. Is he slam dunk running back one this year's class? End of story. From what you have seen just on his tape and his tape alone, is Najee Harris guaranteed slam dunk the first running back coming off the board in the 2021 draft?
In terms of what will happen, or in terms of what I think, how I would rank them?
Period. Both. Yes.
I think in terms of what will happen, not necessarily. The Clemson kid still may go, just based on mock drafts that I'm seeing right now, because he isn't necessarily the home run hitter the way that what's his name, Travis Etienne, is out of Clemson. Right. But in terms of my rankings, I mean, I haven't watched all these other running backs yet, but I think it's going to be awfully tough for me to put someone over Najee Harris as my top running back in this draft.
All right, if he's running back number one, all right, and once again, I haven't gone deep down into the class. I know enough about Travis Etienne from Clemson, seen enough of his highlights to I don't view him right there with Harris. I'll put it to you that way. So
you view Harris above?
Right. From what I'm saying, I've only looked at like the top 2 or 3 of these guys, and not very deep either. So, let's assume Najee Harris is running back number one, which you're probably not going to get a lot of argument outside of that. You have to think he's going to be off the board at 24 overall.
No, not necessarily. With the way the value of the running back position goes, I think mid-first round is about where Harris is slotted to go. So maybe he's off the board above.
I mean, if you got guys like Josh Jacobs coming off the board as early as he did, you know.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. Yes, it would be hard for the Steelers to turn their head the other way if Najee Harris is on the board at 24 overall. But even so, man, you better make sure you maximize his first 3 years in the league, you know,
you would. He'd start right away.
Right, but I mean, could you? I mean, is it just going to be waste? You know, what you don't spend a pick on elsewhere, you know, can the fungibility of the position help make up? You know what I'm saying? My positional value of the fungibility of the position would still leave me shaking my head thinking, oh, man, I wish they didn't take a running back there, you know?
No, I get that. And the most common response I got, even just to the profile of it, was, well, you have to draft an offensive line because a running back without an offensive line isn't going to do as much. And I agree with that in principle, although Harris, to me, is more than just a runner. I think as a receiver, the dude is so comfortable in space. I mean, he runs routes like a receiver. He makes catches like receivers, which is really uncommon, something the Steelers team, I think, could really use in the short pass game, the screen game, flexing him out, RPO type stuff. All of that would be impactful with Najee Harris. But just to the point about value, because you still want to get talent as you sit there at 24 and there aren't the blue chip prospects, the quote unquote can't miss prospects. You just want to find someone who at least will contribute to your team in a positive way. And ideally, you'd rather have an offensive lineman because the value is greater. But if there's a run on tackles and you're looking at a tackle with a lower grade overall than the running back, then you got to value the value versus the talent of it and the grade of the players. So I think it's just all that consideration has to go into making a later first round pick. I'm just saying Harris is a really good player. I think wherever he goes, he'll succeed. And you don't want to ignore that entirely. You don't want to be so blind to the position because he has RB next to his name. You don't look at his talent and value and say this guy's a really good player.
All right, but be prepared to have him miss at least 10% of his games in the first 3 years. You know, just the fungibility of the position and all. Mm-hmm. Look, once again, it's going to be hard for the Steelers to look the other way if he's still on the board at 24. For obvious reasons. Is he that much better at his position best player available than, let's say, you know, a tackle or whatnot at his position, you know? So yeah, that's why the scouts get paid the big bucks. And, you know, that's why Kevin Colbert will continue to say that we'll draft best player available than we are for need, because Kevin Colbert claims that you don't want to get 3 years down the road and say you missed out on the best player, you know, in the draft or, you know, whatever, you know, so We'll see, but I agree. He's very talented in the limited selection of tape that I've seen. He's extremely talented, and as I've said along, if you're going to draft a running back that high, you better get him on the field, and you better leave him on the field for all 3 downs too.
Right, and I think he's capable of that. And if he wasn't capable of that, then I would say no way to even consider him at 24, because you don't want just a pure runner that can't catch or can't block, or is going to be this developmental type prospect. And by the time he develops, he's 4 years in, and you're not renewing his contract, or he's hurt, or whatever the case is. So Harris is that guy that I think is that do it all back for a Steelers system that still ideally wants a feature back. Will they have to adapt to that potentially? But Harris would be a 1-to-1 replacement from James Conner, and a better James Conner.
Yeah, no argument there. I mean, it would be an upgrade for sure, for what the Steelers have had at the running back position the last couple of years here for sure. So,
and obviously you could still draft O-line in the 2nd or 3rd round too. So it's not like you can't draft an offensive lineman still high in the draft.
All right, and you 1.0 is out. Do you usually do it before Senior Bowl, right at Senior Bowl? When is your 1.0? No, mine normally comes out after the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I usually do one right after the Senior Bowl, but this year, since I didn't go to the Senior Bowl, I just said, well, I'll just do one before the Senior Bowl. It's a Monday. Let's just kind of kick the week off with a mock draft.
All right, so take us through the magical mystery tour of 1.0.
Well, I stayed with Alabama at number 24 in my mock draft, but I did not go Najee Harris. I went with a pick that seems pretty popular among Steelers circles with Alex Leatherwood, the offensive tackle, left tackle from Alabama. I think a day one starter to replace Villanueva, who you assume that you're going to lose in free agency. Reminds me of Villanueva in some ways, kind of that leaner frame. I think Leatherwood's a better athlete, but they both have a really strong, violent hands and punch. And the best offensive lineman in college football last year was Alex Leatherwood. So I didn't watch him specifically, but I've been watching his teammates, Landon Dickerson. I'm a big fan of On Tape and Deontay Brown, so I've seen a lot of Leatherwood, and just a really good guy, good player, played right guard, and early in his career when Jonah Williams was a left tackle at Alabama, kicked out to left tackle and had continued success there. So just kind of an obvious day one plug and play replacement for Alejandro Villanueva on Ben's blind side.
If Freiermuth, Najee Harris, Patrick Surtain were other guys that you that you consider, they're funny. 3 of those guys are Alabama, along with Leatherwood there. Would you bypass Najee Harris if you're Kevin Colbert for a guy like Leatherwood?
Well, in my mock I did, so I guess the answer to that is yes. Not that I'm 100% married to that right now. Leatherwood obviously could be off the board. Harris could be off the board, but I do think the talent for Leatherwood is strong. The value is better. You do want to have a focus of building your offensive line. I am a proponent of you have to build your team from the trenches, from the inside out, and so the O-line comes before the run game, before the running back position comes, and so that's why I went Leatherwood ultimately.
All right, fair enough. Round 2.
Round 2, I think it's just, and I labeled this in Twitter as controversial. Maybe controversial was the wrong word, but just uncommon, unexpected is how I went round 2 with Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis. I think some people have more of a round 3 type pick. I went here in round 2.
Yeah, we're gonna get it. We're already starting to he won't be there or that's too early stuff there. Yeah. Which come on, spare us, folks. Let us learn about the player.
It could be a little bit early, but I just think it's a guy that with a pretty impressive skill set, a pretty rare skill set, and I think he fits what this offense is looking for in terms of big playability. If Matt Canada is your OC, kind of fits in that jet offense, maybe some wildcat type stuff or just some more perimeter type plays. And Gainwell's a really explosive guy, great open field speed. And he didn't play 2020 because of COVID concerns. Apparently lost like 4 family members due to COVID, which is really sad. But it was awesome in 2019. Just had a monster season. And while some people will say it was a gadgety offense or, he's only 1 year production, you look at Tony Pollard, you look at Antonio Gibson, both those guys were successful at Memphis and then went on to have really good and still having, obviously, good NFL career. So I think Gainwell, obviously this team's going to address offensive line and run game and those kind of elements heavily in this draft. That is the theme of my first mock draft is trying to improve the O-line, improving the run game overall. And Gainwell is kind of that big playmaker and also can catch 51 receptions, 600 yards in 2019, 16 total touchdowns 2 years ago. So he's productive. The Steelers really value production in college when they draft their running back. So Gainwell, a little undersized maybe, but not significantly so. And I think it's an explosive guy who can win in space, and that's going to be important.
So he was a 2-year producer there then?
No, just 1 year.
Okay, what did he do? Because I haven't watched him. What did he do in 2018?
He was a backup basically behind Gibson and Pollard. I think more Pollard than Gibson.
All right, and he opted out in 2020, so he's a 1 year guy.
Basically, but that 1 year production was like over 2,000 total yards from scrimmage and 16 touchdowns.
Okay, all right. Explosive play factor with him.
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of those. I'm not entirely sure on the exact numbers, but from what I've been able to gather, I mean, Memphis, offense is pretty potent, and just like Gibson and Pollard, dude made a lot of big plays. And it's not like, and this guy had a better resume than probably either of those guys, especially Gibson. Gibson was a kind of a bit piece, didn't really wasn't heavily focused in that offense. Gainwell was the guy in 2 years ago, and so you do have production there. And while yes, it is only 1 year production, given the COVID climate, I think maybe that stuff matters a little bit less just because of the weirdness of the COVID climate we're trying to draft in right now.
I'll give you a couple of numbers here. He had 13 receptions that gained 15 or more yards, and he had 25 receptions that gained 8. He had 8 receptions that gained 25 or more yards in 2019. So 13 that went 15 or more, and 8 that went 25 or more. As far as his rushing split stats went, he had in 2019 38 plays or 38 runs of 10 yards or more, just 14 of 20 or more. Would you have bet that he would have had more than 14 based on what you saw on tape?
Maybe, but I don't know. I don't have a good context or relative baseline to that number. 14 is still not a bad number overall. He was more of a zone scheme at Memphis. I know they ran a lot of outside zone there, but I think, again, you look at Pollard, Gibson translating, I think this guy can succeed in any sort of scheme.
All right. So what's the biggest thing that stuck out with him on tape?
Big playability and just well-roundedness. I mean, it's hard to find college backs who catch 50-plus passes. There's a couple of them out there, but not too many. And so I think he's a guy, again, that's going to help in the short pass game, the screen game, just winning in space. Can you get a running back that is going to thrive in space? And Gainwell is that guy.
All right, round 3.
Round 3, I am going with Trey Hill, the center from Georgia. And again, the focus here is O-line, run game. You can guarantee this team's going to have a laser focus on upgrading those areas. When you have the worst run game since 1966, you're going to put a lot of investment in upgrading those areas, especially, and this was kind of written pre-Sunday's Pouncey news, but even heightened more with the possibility of the Pouncey may retire. Hill, 6'4", 330-pound center. You don't see too many 330-pound centers from Georgia. Did play guard early in his career, kind of kicked inside. Some medical concerns there potentially. I think he had surgery on both his knees to end 2020. But a mauler, SEC competition, good starting experience, 2.5-year starter, a junior, so still some upside, some room to grow there. But just you want to get physical guys, you want to get maulers, guys that are going to help you in short yardage situations where this team has been terrible at. Get a 6'4", 330-pound center from Georgia. I think probably solve some of those issues.
Yeah, I haven't watched a lick on him yet. I have watched a little bit of the guy that you have in the 4th round, however.
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch all these guys too in depth yet. Mullen's one guy I haven't seen a whole lot of. And Mullen, honestly, and this is Elijah Mullen, the cornerback from Washington in round 4, my mock, he could go higher than this. I think that's one guy you could probably sit there and say he's probably going to go 3rd round. But as you said, Dave, early in the process, we're not going to get too bogged down in that stuff right now. But first defensive pick here, and you're going to lose at least one if Mike Hilton, Cam Sutton, potentially both, hopefully not, but potentially both. And so Mullen can be that slot guy. 4 picks in 2019. I think he's more a 3-year starter, played well. Just get yourself some really good depth there and potentially to take over if someone gets hurt or for 2022.
Is that my boy Dax Milne you had that down there?
Yeah, I threw your bone.
You got to add an L in there.
Oh, I just misspelled his name.
Yeah, you got Dax Mine in there. That threw me off for a moment there. I'm assuming that's the BYU wide receiver, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you watch any of him at all?
Just what you've posted, basically. I was just trying to find. Could he be a slot guy or is he an outside guy?
I think he can play all over the place. To be honest with you, I think they, from what I'm gathering, a lot of X work, with him. But I think he did move around enough over there in that offense.
Yeah, because I was trying to find like that big slot receiver to replace Juju if he walks, but it's just hard to find that guy. I couldn't find that name that fits, especially unless you were going to invest a real heavy early pick in the position. So I just couldn't find that guy that fit, but maybe he would be one of those guys that could be a replacement.
And he's not, he's 6'1", I think. Milne is. I think he's kind of a jack of all trades, kind of move around guy when it comes to him, and definitely, at least from what I've seen so far, third, fourth round, probably kind of down. The only thing about Elijah Molden is he is a little bit undersized. I think he's primarily slot, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's listed 5'11", 190. Maybe becomes a little bit shorter than that. But yeah, you'd be drafting him to play play nickel.
Right. And I've seen some people say, well, this guy's the top cornerback. How many times have we seen undersized slot corners go in the first round? Not often, unless they just blister it too with a 40 time on top of it. So I would imagine that, probably people are going to push you back on Molden being able to get him in the fourth round.
Yeah, but yeah, my basis for that was Washington only played 4 games this year. I think I know a lot of schools didn't play a ton, but Washington and the Pac-12 probably played less than any other conference that did play football this year. And because he's a slot guy, that may push him down. And this cornerback class is pretty strong. I mean, I don't think Bolden's going to be the first cornerback taken in this draft.
Kerry Angeline, tell me about why you consider tight end Kerry Angeline.
Yeah, I had to kind of throw some names there at the end.
You're talking about tight end. I'm kind of curious.
State. Yeah, just he's 6'7", 250 with some production, I think. And you think Pittsburgh will just draft some of the bigger tight ends, which is reflected in my next pick in my mock draft. So that's just why I just kind of threw him in there last second.
All right, and tell me about your tight end out of Virginia.
Yeah, I think if there was one guy in this mock that you could sit there and say this guy feels like he's going to be a Steeler, it's Tony Poljan from Virginia, 6'7", 265. I think maybe some scouts may even ask him to play tackle. I've just kind of started his tape early. He's my next draft profile. His pass pro might be the best trait of his game right now. I don't know if it's a compliment or an insult to Poljan, but he just kind of checks all those boxes with a lot of production, great size. He's a build-up speed guy. He's not super athletic. He's a pretty rigid type guy, but good hands. Obviously, he's going to help you in the run game and in pass pro. He was a Central Michigan guy, so a MAC guy for Pittsburgh, and then he transfers to Virginia, has a good season there. Former quarterback, too, actually. He started his Central Michigan career as a quarterback and played a decent amount in 2018 before converting to tight end. So I don't love this pick. I don't love the idea of waiting until the fourth round for a tight end, but if it doesn't happen early, the depth here is not strong, and Poljan just kind of feels like someone the Steelers are going to like.
All right, Charles Snowden, outside linebacker, Virginia, in round 6.
Yeah, sticking with another Virginia
big boy.
Cavalier. Yeah, I don't know a ton about him other than a long dude, 6'7", 240 is how they list him. I had 15 pass breakups in his career, so I think that length is probably an asset there, and you're just looking for some edge depth. Obviously, 6 rounds you can't count on this guy to do much, but without Bud Dupree, you got TJ Watt, Highsmith, not a lot behind him right now. Just looking to add some depth there, and the guy has some pretty good production, 30.5 career tackles for loss, 15 sacks, team captain, Power 5 conference. It seems like a decent dart, though, in round number 6.
Round 7, you got a fullback in there?
Yeah. Well, this is if they were to cut Derek Watt, you could do this after the draft, too. You go with Ben Mason, the fullback from Michigan, regarded as the top fullback in this year's class. Gotten some Patrick Ricard type comps because he was a defensive lineman to begin his career. Ricard still plays some defensive lineman in the NFL, and just a potential short yardage option as a blocker and also a runner. The dude had 7 touchdowns on 33 carries in 2018. Played on special teams, so makes an impact there as well. You can draft Mason, cut Watt, save $1 million, get similar production. And for a team that wants to get better in run game, short yardage, the get a yard offense that they are so bad at, I think Ben Mason helps.
All right, and closing it out with a inside linebacker out of Mississippi State.
Yeah, I mean, 7th round, 219, where do you go? I went Errol Thompson from Mississippi State, 6'1", 250, kind of a Vince Williams vibe. On paper, haven't seen a lot of tape on him, but 312 career tackles, 23 for a loss. If you cut Vince Williams because of cap casualty, I know you still have Spillane and UG3, Marcus Allen, but you just kind of get someone that can hopefully compete, be on special teams, and be a downhill, run and hit kind of thumper.
2-time team captain, that fits. And boy, they like guys that run downhill and tackle a lot, don't they? 312 career tackles. Good Lord.
Medikevich had a similar, I think, resume coming out of Temple in the 7th round. So 7th round, kind of a dart throw type thing, but that's where I went.
All right, of everybody on this mock draft, and guys that you considered from round 3 and on, who is one player that you say, Dave, you got to go check this guy out tonight?
Of guys in my mock or just
guys in your mock or guys
considered?
that you considered from round 3 and on, of all the names that either you mocked or the guys that you considered from round 3 and on, who's one guy that you would say, go take a look at this guy tonight?
That's a good question. I don't know who I would go with. One guy that I want to watch more of myself, because the one obvious omission from this mock is I did not go with a wide receiver, and I considered it. I just didn't know where to fit it because I thought I wanted the focus for this draft. I think the Steelers' approach is going to be O-line run game, and so by the time you got into the later rounds in this mock, there really wasn't a place to fit a receiver. One guy I want to look at is Amari Rogers from Clemson. Had a really good year, potential slot option for Pittsburgh, and so that was someone my others considered in round number 3, where I went Trey Hill, the center from Georgia. I want to try to find more about these receivers, someone that could replace Juju. I'm still working under the assumption there's still a chance that Juju returns, maybe a better chance than what some other people think right now. So that's one reason why I didn't go receiver, but I do want to check out Amari Rogers from Clemson.
I mean, obviously, if they got Juju back, it would make make sense for this to be one of those rare years where Kevin Colbert doesn't take a draft a wide receiver, or if he did, he took one extremely late. Type situation.
And obviously, I think because Claypool played more in the slot, like last year, the guys weren't so stuck to their positions where you had your X guy, your Z guy, and your F guy. I mean, they all moved around. So Claypool can play in the slot more. That'll get James Washington more snaps as well. So it's not like it's impossible to replace Juju with your in-house talent already on the roster. You'd still want to draft a receiver probably if Juju does walk. But you probably just shift Claypool to play more in the slot, Washington at the Z, Deontay at the X. Depth is a concern, obviously, but that's one way to start replacing Juju snaps in the slot.
Right. Okay. So. All right. Good job. I mean, you're way ahead of me on a lot of these guys. I got a lot of these guys I got to turn some tape on.
I got to do the same, to be honest. Some of these guys that you start looking at some service level tape and bio, but now you're like, okay, now I want to go watch Ben Mason more. I'm going to watch more Tony Poljan. That report will be up in a couple of days, maybe by tomorrow. So we'll see. Just the first crack at it. I'm pretty happy with how things turned out, though. Overall, when is your first mock gonna land?
After the Senior Bowl. Always after the Senior Bowl. I got to get some stuff written up on more stuff on the Steelers, free agents and stuff like that, and obviously get this salary cap report out this week as well too. Kind of complete update on that. So I usually run about a week and a half to 2 weeks behind you. So it's coming. Just it probably I doubt I'll have my first mock out this week. It'll probably be the week after.
All right, so those who read the mock on Steelers Depot, let me know your thoughts. Did you like the mock? Did you not like it? What position would you have addressed earlier? Or, would you take in a receiver? I want to hear you guys' feedback, so send an email or a comment and get your feedback on that mock draft.
All right.
Anything else to talk about, Dave? I think that was the list that I had of things to discuss on today's show. Any other thing you wanted to add in?
No, we're already, I think, the hour 45-minute mark or pretty close to it, and I don't want to get into the unrestricted free agent talk. We can kind of push that off probably for another week here or so on that. So why don't we tackle a few reader emails here?
All right, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Okay, let's get to that email machine here. We'll start with one at the top here from Jelani Suleiman. Hey, David Knox, love the show as always. We can all agree that the O-line is by far the top priority this offseason. With that being said, if for some odd reason Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley fell to the Steelers, that it would be hard. Would it be hard to pass up? The reason I ask is Hayden is probably in the last year or two in his career, and one of them could potentially take the starting corner job once Hayden is gone. I mean, it's obviously, you never talk indefinites in this thing when it comes to draft related, and would you bypass X player if he's on the board? I haven't even seen anything on Caleb Farley. Have you watched anything on him?
No, not really, but just to the overall question, you don't want to talk in absolutes. It would just, not that it would kill me, but to go with another defensive player in the first round for another year, I mean, given all the issues on offense and guys that are going to lose and immediate holes they're going to have as opposed to future ones with Hayden and Nelson still here but on, entering the last year of their deal, it would be tough. Not impossible. It would depend on the board, but it'd be tough to view it that way.
They sure are better about adding DBs after the fact than
that as well.
Than they are drafting them. I get it, Jelani, but this year I would be opposed to it. They got to go offense. I think somehow, some way, they got to add some offense in this draft. I will be fairly shocked. Once again, you don't want to talk in absolutes here, but I'll be fairly shocked if they go defense again in the first round this year. Obviously, last year, I don't know, call it what you will. You can call Minkah Fitzpatrick, whatever you want to call it, but it feels like they got to go offense this year in first round finally.
Mm-hmm. You would think so, but we'll see.
Real quick, I was going to ask you, having trouble identifying some of those 4 and 5 tech type Stephon Tuitt types. Have you run across any of them yet? 298, 305 pound, 6'4", 6'5" guys that interest you?
Mm-hmm. I haven't really come across any names because I'm still assuming that they're going to retain Alualu and maybe a Chris Wormley. One guy who was in my others considered, and I haven't watched him yet, is Isaiah Loudermilk. And let me get his bio here. His name actually has 2 H's in Isaiah too, so it's not spelled wrong. It looks like it's spelled wrong, but I promise you it's not. He is from, where is he from, Wisconsin? Let me pull up his bio. Yeah, from Wisconsin, listed 6'7", 293. The production isn't super heavy, 8 career sacks, a senior from Wisconsin. So that's one guy I probably want to start watching on.
I mean, we admit normally those guys have a body type when it comes to the Steelers, and right with the defensive ends like they like usually 290, maybe 285 at the lightest. Mm-hmm. With those guys, but 6'4", 6'5", and I'm talking about top 3 round guys. Obviously, you have the guys like the Isaiah Buggs and stuff like that, but how much longer is Isaiah Buggs going to stick around?
All right, maybe not even into 2021. But it's just getting tougher because the way it used to be was you just took these big, 3 techs in college and made them 5 techs in the NFL, and they just had to stop the run. And now you're looking for guys that can also get after the quarterback. So you're trying to find that 290 guy that has, 7 or 8 sacks in the season. And there just aren't a lot of those guys out there unless you want to spend a first-round pick on them.
Right. That's why I say, can you turn me on to any names? Because I'm not seeing them right yet.
I haven't either.
All right, Dennis O'Brien writes in, if you watched the AFC playoff last night, you had to see what our Steelers have no chance with Statue Ben. He can't move and his arm is not good enough. I believe it's time to rebuild. I've been following the Steelers since 10 years old in 1958. My dad took me to the first game. Ben's got to go.
Well, I mean, obviously I wouldn't push it that far, but I understand and recognize that the next Steelers quarterback is going to have to be more mobile and hopefully have a bigger and better arm. And I think those are 2 pretty key components. I mean, look at the quarterbacks that were still playing yesterday. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Tom Brady. I mean, obviously Tom Brady is not mobile, but the rest of them are, and they all have pretty good arms. I mean, Brady's still throwing a great deep ball, even at 42, 43 years old. So those are all still critical components.
Bradley Glasser writes in, second time, long time, still love the show. Listen to you guys responded to emails Friday. You got a question about cutting Ben instead of other players. I think the thought of email may have been pointing out to keep younger players from walking and locking them up for long term instead of keeping Ben for 1 year. I think Ben is dumb, but I think cutting Ben is dumb, but I get their point. Compete barely with Ben for 1 year or solidify a team for long term by locking up younger talent? Question mark. Okay.
Well, so I mean, locking up younger talent is nice, but then you will always go back to that we don't have a quarterback issue, and until you find that quarterback, you're not a serious competitor. Again, look at the 4 quarterbacks we just played yesterday, all franchise quarterbacks. And so I just want to recognize and remind people how bad things were in 2019 without Ben. And how we were sitting there saying how much we miss Ben. And I understand there's decline, and at some point you're going to have to move on, and maybe that's after 2021. But just don't pretend like this team's going to magically waltz from Ben to the next franchise quarterback and it's all going to be fantastic, because it probably won't be. They said that after Bradshaw retired in, 83, and it took a long time to get back to the Super Bowl. It took to the 90s, and it took a longer time to find your next franchise quarterback.
What are you doing with all your Devlin Hodges paraphernalia and merchandise. And
yeah, my duck bill isn't worth much anymore.
Yeah, your personalized jersey and all. What
good for him. Hey, out there, duck in LA, that'll be interesting. But yeah, he signed with the Rams, and yeah, good for him.
Let's see. This one from Gustavo Gal writes in, hello, guys. Steelers fan and Steelers Depot listener, reader from Brazil. I would love to see a weekly thing where you guys would interact with viewers' mock drafts where they would send them to you and you guys would pick like 3 or 4 drafts to discuss the podcast or make an article format on the site maybe. Big shout out from Brazil. Keep up the good work. Thank you for the email. Look, you guys think we sit around and have all this time. We're trying to watch film on these prospects ourselves and write articles. And look, the site still during the off season, we try to put out 20 posts a day. Obviously monitoring and interacting on social media where we can and watching the tape. Mock drafts are fine and all like that, but they're, everybody's got one and they're all different. We're better off instead of reading off the names on the mock drafts. I think we're better off watching tape on them so we can talk more knowledgeably about them. I think overall, So look, we get enough of these things and. I know I always try to tailor my mock drafts to what I think the Steelers would do, not so much what I would do, because nobody gives a damn what I would do, to be honest with you.
Right.
I would hope that a lot of people listen to the show and read the site to kind of get insight on the team and not, oh boy, I sure want them to trade for Aaron Rodgers, long story short, I don't think Alex and myself and a lot of the guys, and really it goes into the process of why we kind of add the guys that we do to the site as contributors and why some don't work out is because we want a reality factor here. I don't think we don't do you guys and gals any good by entertaining these off-the-wall trades and sign this quarterback and that quarterback because it's not going to happen. Why are we going to take you guys down rabbit holes that we could, I guess, and probably get a few more clicks that way, but don't a lot of you tune in and read the site because you want to know A, what's going on with the team, and B, what's most likely going to happen with the team?
I think so. I would hope so.
Pick me up, Alex.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said there, Dave. And I think especially for us right now as we're trying to play catch-up on draft stuff, I think that's the best use of our time is to learn as much about these guys as possible. So hopefully we're as informed and informing you guys as much as possible come the draft or in the weeks leading up to the draft so you guys have a good feeling of where the Steelers stand, especially in a year like this where it is going to be so difficult to predict and project these things. I think our time is best served just trying to learn about these guys, sharing that and interacting, talking about the players and the value of it than these hypotheticals about Aaron Rodgers or whatever the case is.
Yeah, and top 5 guys the Steelers need to cut,
Right.
Look, there obviously there's a lot of Steeler blogs out there. If you want to read them, God bless you. But there's a lot of trash out there. If that's how you're entertained, have at it. But man, there's so much garbage out there, and on top of it, there's so many people writing about salary cap and all like that. That it's so wrong. Other than me sitting here, I could gladly name some names to you of people that get this stuff wrong, and the list is long. But then I look like a butthole then, which I'm gonna look like one anyway. But man, be careful what you read. If you want to be entertained by that stuff, there's a lot of that stuff out there. But one of the things I've always tried to strive to build a site around is what has happened and what's likely to happen, because I think that best keeps fans informed and lets them be able to carry on a conversation outside of the internet,
Right. And then when something does happen, then we go full force on analyzing it. We didn't talk about Dwayne Haskins a whole lot before he got signed, but when he got signed, we went full depth, and you did a great contextualization on the deep ball. We had a long conversation on the podcast about it. So when these things do happen and these things become realities, then we spend, of course, a lot of time on focusing on what happened, the implications in the future.
And it's not going to be the last article and conversation we have about Dwayne Hatton. The long season is long. I mean, the off season is long. We're obviously going to be talking more about a guy like Haskins and his tape as things go along here. Obviously, the pre-draft season right now is upon us, and getting into some of these prospects right now. Anyway, I digress. Alex Campbell writes in, "Hey guys, here's my thoughts about Big Ben next season. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. With so many players likely leaving next year due to retirement or the salary cap, it's not a stretch to assume that we will be worse next year than this last season. If that's the case, then I believe that the likelihood of us actually competing for a championship is very slim, even if we have Ben." Look, you're not going to. Haven't we said as much, Alex, that even if Ben is on this team, it's hard to make it where we sit right now. It's hard to come right out and say, oh boy, the Steelers are going to be a slam dunk to compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and not only have we said that since the season ended, we said that before the season started. I mean, this was the year.
Right.
I mean, I will harp on that a million more times. We recognize this was the year to go all in. That's what makes this bitter, quick end to the season even more disappointing. Losing it all in Wild Card Weekend sucks, but losing in a year where you felt like you legitimately had Super Bowl aspirations, this team did, and then knowing how much harder it is going to be to get back there with this current era we're in, I mean, makes it sting all that much more. And so that's why this year was particularly disappointing, even more disappointing than 2017's loss to Jacksonville, I think, because it felt like back then, okay, you can rebuild and Ben's still here and all that. But now it feels like we are very close to the new era. And it's unfortunate that it's coming on the heels of a wild card loss to the Cleveland Browns. Hurts.
Alex goes on to say, so if we likely can't win a Super Bowl, then why bother keeping Ben? With the $19 million or so we would save, we could potentially hold on to some younger players like Juju, Hilton, Sutton, who may shorten our rebuild time and help us win in 2 to 4 years when we hopefully find a new young quarterback. Key word there is hopefully find a new young quarterback. I say let Ben loose, give our rostered quarterbacks the chance to compete for the starting job this year, and look for a new franchise quarterback as soon as possible to complement the young guys we'll be able to re-sign with the savings from Ben's contract. Keep it up, guys. The two of you are far from fungible. Well, thank you for that, Alex. Here's the thing, too. This is for Alex Campbell, not Alex Kozora. If you're going to go ahead and go that, look, I certainly see the argument in that. But if you're going to go ahead and say that's it with Ben, all right, then you go ahead and say that's it with Pouncey. That's it with Joe Hayden. That's it with Vince Williams. That's it with go ahead and throw Derek Watt on the pile. Who else? I mean that's covered quite a gamut right there, right? You've trimmed a lot of cap money that way. You could certainly go out and heck, at that point you could maybe even entertain re-signing Bud Dupree for a couple years on top of it there. But that would allow you to bring back guys like Hilton, Sutton, Juju. Who am I missing there? You know, maybe one other young guy on top of it. You know. And then you invest heavily into draft and go for that. Why are you going to hold on to Joe Hayden and Maurkice Pouncey and maybe Vince Williams if you're going to go ahead and part ways with Ben, right? You just cut it,
right? Yeah,
clean it all up then.
Right, go big or go home. So yeah, I get that argument. And I understand this roster is going to be worse. The odds of winning Super Bowl, they're not zero, but they're greatly decreased in 2021 than they were in 2020. My counter, and maybe it's not the best argument, is that it's easy to just blow things up and just say restart. It's harder to try to build. And so I think it's easy just to be fatalist and say, well, just let's blow it all up. And generally, it's not how teams operate, especially for teams like Pittsburgh in their situation. I get the argument there, but the reality of that happening is just so slim that, it's not even worth really entertaining too seriously right now.
And unless you have, look, I mean, and once again, is it, if Ben stays, the chances of them here's what it boils down to. Your chances of winning a Super Bowl are greater in 2021 with Ben than without Ben, period. Now, to what degree you want to go to either way there, obviously, I'm not flopping down any money like I did this year on the Steelers potentially winning the Super Bowl at the odds I got in that. I mean, it would really, I would envision the Steelers, even with Roethlisberger, would be something like, I don't know, 30 to 1, 32 to 1, 35 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now, without Ben, where are they? 50?
Higher, 100 to 1.
That high? I mean, okay.
I don't know. I mean, you know this stuff more than I do, but obviously dramatically different.
Dramatically different. So, look, we'll see what Kevin Colbert has to think. If Ben retires or you cut Ben, then go ahead and cut Joe Hayden too, and Pouncey and all these guys, and just get it rolling, and go ahead and if there's a quarterback that you really, really like, go up and go get him, whatever the cost is, because that's the only chance you have.
And the last thing I would say is I think the argument that Colbert and Tomlin tell themselves is this is Dave. We both agree this is still a playoff team. This team can still make the playoffs next year. That would not surprise anybody. And so the thought is just get in the playoffs, and now anything can happen. As soon as you get in the playoffs, where you have been, you just win one game, you're moving on. Maybe there's an injury to an opponent, or you just get a good bounce or play a great game, whatever the case is. You're just in the tournament. You have a chance, and once you get in that playoffs, you never know what could happen. I think that's still the team's approach. And you can say that's wrong and that it's short-sighted. And winning a playoff game is nice, but if you don't get to a Super Bowl, who cares? Still ending the season sad, and that's fair. But I think that is their argument of just this team is still a playoff-capable team. Get in the playoffs, give yourself a chance, and anything can happen. We'll see what goes from there. And
look, now that the Patriots are no longer the Patriots, right? I mean, they're looking for a quarterback and everything to go along with that as well too. Really, it's the Chiefs and everybody else right now. Period.
Unfortunately, the Chiefs have just replaced the Patriots as the Patriots.
Right, but at least it's just one team still, right? So anybody else, and anything can happen. You're one Patrick Mahomes injury away from putting 10 other teams in the talk of winning the AFC, right?
Right, which almost happened this week. Mahomes almost didn't play that game. Almost. You get the point. He got hurt, so. You never know what could happen is the point.
Josh Allen's a fine quarterback, but are we slam dunking him being in the AFC Championship game next year? No.
No, the only quarterback I'll slam dunk is Patrick Mahomes. That's the only quarterback he can.
Right, and say what you will about the Ravens. It's one thing to do what they do during the regular season, but it's another thing to get in the postseason and make it to the AFC Championship and beyond with Lamar Jackson. They have to prove it,
for sure.
Baker, fine. They got a lot of good things going on over there. But look, once again, is Baker enough? Once again, you better have some semblance of a franchise quarterback because all those teams we just named have franchise quarterbacks. So either it's Ben or it's a rookie who's going to take a while to become or Matthew Stafford. You get where I'm coming at there. So if there's any inkling in you to think that maybe you can compete with Ben Roethlisberger, then that's the way you go. If you don't, then might as well cut the rest of the fat off of the bone there.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
All right. Once again, we're not running out and being bullish on the Steelers in 2021, but I can guarantee you we'll at least entertain the thought of the Steelers winning the AFC North if Ben's back.
Yeah, it'll be a very competitive division, but certainly the Steelers, could still win it for sure.
All right, Greg Dunlap writes in from Draft 1974. Thanks for the ad-free version. Is well worth the bucks. Question, comment, and request for astute analysis. Question: before George Kittle, who was your last draft find who proved you right in such a big way? And then analysis. Forgetting that Ben has been a franchise quarterback in the past, no question he was. I would like to see Steelers Depot analyze Ben going back to 2016 and see if he has actually played like a franchise quarterback for a whole season at any time over the span, not counting his injury year, although he looked bad for the games he did play. My guess is he has not earned the label of franchise quarterback in quite a while. Comment: on Friday's show, you answered an email by telling the writer the Steelers don't give a crap about what all of us think about fan base criticism. I would like you to take your own comment to heart each and every show. You comment about negative comments you get on Twitter and other social media. I bet your listeners don't give a crap about the comments you receive via Twitter from anyone who can sign up for Twitter. If you don't believe me, ask your fan base. All right, fair enough. The podcast and the information and analysis you provide satisfies this Steeler fan who moved away 40 years ago. Thanks so much. All right, start with the question. Before George Kittle, who was your last draft find who proved you right in such a big way?
I don't know if I've had one like you've had Kittle. I know one guy I was high on that went undrafted was Jonathan Jones, the cornerback from Auburn, undersized, that most people just kind of thought just wouldn't succeed, and I was a big fan of Jonathan Jones, and I thought could be a mid-round pick, and I think he's had a pretty good career with the Patriots.
Yeah, it's easy to point out some of these that I don't have huge draft crushes every year. I have guys that I start off with, like, the BYK. There's a lot of tinsel with me in the pre-draft process here, so. It's not like I make memorable notes of, oh man, that's the guy in this year's class. Period. I've always been fascinated with blocking tight ends, with moving guards, with edge rushers. I was high on Carl Lawson. I think you were too a couple of years ago too.
Mm-hmm,
Carl
sure.
Lawson's kind of making us look okay,
Mm-hmm.
even though he went later than he went. I don't think it's a great way to look at your past analysis. Look, I'll never let people not remember George Kittle, but I guess, in long story short, I'm coming up with not a lot of names where I can go, oh, I told you about that guy. To me, that's not how you learn in a process. There's been a lot of guys I've been high on that I'm going back and trying to figure out, okay, why was I not right about that guy? Or why was I, Artie Burns is a guy that I'm more happy about being able to say, yeah, I told you about that guy,
Mm-hmm.
Winfield, the safety, I really liked him. Savage, the kid out of Green Bay. Really, really liked him. But as far as me trying to sit here and claim I told you so slam dunks outside of Kittle, I'd be hard to find to build a large list of those.
All I'm hearing is you should be the person selecting DBs for the Steelers because you're doing a better job than what Kevin Colbert's done.
Yeah. Let's see. Former Steelers and Raiders wide receiver Martavis Bryant has signed with the CFL's Toronto Argonauts, still suspended by the NFL. How about that for some news on a Monday here? Okay, let's see what else do we have here. Did we get all of his questions and comments out of the way there? I know we focused on the first part of that, Alex.
I think so.
Let me see. What else did he have to say? Been in the franchise quarterback thing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's been ups and downs with Ben. It's hard to me to think back to 2016 and encapsulate that and separate it from 2015, for example. And then, you're missing all 2019. I mean, I still think Ben overall has played well, and what happened in 2019 without Ben was a reminder of that. Not that Ben's been perfect, not that Ben has had his fair share of bad games and mistakes and was terrible in some of these games, absolutely. But do you want to call that franchise quarterback? I probably would, but I'm sure some people would say otherwise, especially coming off the season that we're coming off and the game we're coming off right now.
And look, Ben's going to have to become more Brady than ever before, especially in 2021, because you're either that super uber smart, know where the ball is going, that kind of stuff, analytical. In other words, if you're not going to be the guy that extends plays anymore, like Ben made a career out of doing, you better be on the opposite side of that. You better be more Tom Brady than Tom Brady's even been. One thing that Tom Brady, or two things Tom Brady I think has going for him right now is he knows what he's looking at across from him when he goes to the line of scrimmage. It's very, very rare that you see Tom Brady fooled, right, Alex?
Right. Absolutely.
And number two is his ability still, it might not seem like much, but his ability to move inside the pocket still, he doesn't, he still he'll see ghosts occasionally and he'll still have those happy feet, but just the slight movements that he makes in the pocket where other quarterbacks would probably bail and him still be able to move and then step up and deliver the football is really still second to none. And that stuck out to me yesterday in that game against Green Bay. His ability to move in the pocket still is phenomenal for a guy his age. And how many times was he sacked in that game? Once? Or at all?
Maybe. I mean, his mobility within the pocket has been one of his best and most underrated traits. You talk about Peyton Manning, talk about Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, always talking about football IQ with those guys. Now, I think Ben's underrated with his football IQ. I think he's a really smart guy, and I think he's actually improved in those areas the last couple of years, but I'm not going to pretend he's at the Tom Brady level right now because nobody currently playing is at the Tom Brady level.
He was sacked once, and that was by Kenny Clark just running over that guy. In that game. So, and that's not a bad front that the Packers have, right?
Yeah, it's pretty talented.
You know, we got guys like Gary and Smith and all like that. Now their secondary, look, they still okay secondary, and overall their defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt. Now, look, their defense is one of the key reasons why that and turnovers, obviously, but Tom Brady turned the ball over 3 times for them, and they couldn't do anything with that. Now, albeit all those weren't Tom Brady's fault, a couple going off some receiver hands and all like that. But anyway, back to Ben. Ben, you put the ball in Ben's hand late in the game, you could probably get it done still, and obviously he would have to moving forward here. So. All right, let's move along with this. Ben Luterio writes in renewed spirit. David Alex, I'll admit before this Steelers season, my spirit and enjoyment for football and Steelers football had dwindled to almost nothing. However, after the season, those same feelings disappeared and my football spirit was renewed mostly from the dedication of Steelers Depot. Well, that makes us feel good. With that said, my question is, where can I go to learn about the game in terms of X's and O's, technique, any suggestions? My goal is to be able to decipher and digest an all 22 film session as well as view draft tape and write breakdowns of players. Thanks for the time and God bless. Ben, look, the only way you learn is by watching and reading and learning more. And it does not. I learn X's and O's every day, period. I learned something new. Alex, I think you feel the same on that. Now, who's the retired quarterback that has great film breakdown sessions?
JT O'Sullivan. Right?
Boy, that's great tape there.
Yep.
Really is good there. The Edge. Well, I don't know if you've taped. I tape every Edge matchup show. If you don't tape them, get on Matt Bowen's timeline. Get on Greg Cosell's timeline. Get on the Edge matchup Twitter timeline. Nearly almost all the segments are on there in one way, shape, or form or the other. Go through all those. Any other suggestions, Alex?
Yeah, I think those are great suggestions. If you have NFL Game Pass, there's the all-22 player film sessions they have with Baldy and Kurt Warner that I think are really informative. We've
really
covered
good.
that when Steelers are on there, Minka and Hayward, and so you can watch other players talk, interact, and they go into X's and O's pretty good. And yeah, you can just find stuff on YouTube. There's Patreon accounts you can sign up for. Just follow guys on Twitter. Just if you're on Twitter, which I assume you are, follow Paul Alexander and Brandon Thorne, and just they're easy to find. Just start searching for these guys, and they'll pop up in your timeline, and just absorb all of that.
Right.
Take notes, write stuff down. Don't try to remember it on your own because you'll never remember all that information if you just never write anything down.
Right, especially route concepts.
Yeah, that especially.
Those kind of things there. And don't just limit yourself, obviously, to Steelers tape. Try to become. You will really enjoy, and I take it that you already have a subscription in all 22 pass. That's you got to have that. If you don't have that, you got to be able to watch the all 22 and get into that. And I think it's $99 a year, Alex, or something like that.
I think so. Might be a student discount if you're a student.
But. Yeah, I don't know. It could be $999 a year, and I'd still pay it. But I don't want to give NFL Game Pass any bright ideas. But do that, and you just got to keep watching and keep learning. It just people say, what's the magic? There is no magic. You just watch and learn. And hopefully you're reading Steelers Depot too, because we got a lot. Alex and boy Tyler Wise and Owen, and man, we got a lot of great X's and O's guys on Steelers Depot now as well.
Yeah, really excited about that. Hopefully we're able to inform you as well, Ben, during the season and during draft season.
All right, we've gone long enough. This has magically gone over the 2-hour mark. Imagine that. But in the meantime, tell the people what we're probably going to do tonight, and we'll be hit and miss the rest of the offseason. Alex?
Yeah, we'll have our YouTube live stream tonight. We'll probably go the full hour tonight, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. Go over my mock draft. Maybe even I got some people asking if we can play around with mock draft stuff during the live stream, so I might try that out just to entertain people during the hour. But come hang out with Dave and I, ask any of your Steelers questions, and we'll be sure to answer it.
All right. In the meantime, if you like what we do, and let's see, go to SteelersDepot.com. Obviously, you're listening to the podcast. We appreciate that. Let's see, if you want to donate to the site, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, you hear a lot of people talking about for $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. Follow me on Twitter at SteelersDepot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Alex and I will be back on it again on Wednesday. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.